have our 10 o'clock timed item, Oregon Shipping Group, Mr. Mannix and Mr. Harrington. Is it Harrington or Harrison?
Mr. Harrington, Connor Harrington.
Connor Harrington. And we also have our operator, Toby, here also, and others. So take it away, Mr. Mannix.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. Morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I am Kevin Mannix from Salem. My usual job is I'm an attorney in private practice doing business law. But during the last 3 years, I've also been actively engaged as the director of the Oregon Shipping Group. And the Oregon Shipping Group is simply an advocate for improving the freight shipping systems in the state of Oregon. We have a number of businesses that support our work, and one element of the work has been that we are working more and more on what we can do to help short-line railroads in Oregon. I do want to mention that Connor Harrington, my associate, is here today, and as Commissioner Winters already mentioned, Toby Van Alforst, the general manager of the Goose Lake Railway, is here along with his associate, Matt Eide, from Next Rail. We're here today mainly to give you, I'll say, a briefing about what we're all about, and to ask for your encouragement and support. We're here as fans of the Lake County Railroad and as new fans now of the Goose Lake Railway, the folks who are operating a railroad. We've gathered information. When I say we, I'm talking about the Oregon Shipping Group. Gathered information about the Lake County Railroad and its history. We're still learning every day. But one of the things that we are most encouraged about is you've got a railroad which truly meets the needs of your business community to ship product. You're quite a ways from the interstate highway link, and you've got to rely on roads, but you've got businesses that are moving product, and it is best for them to be able to move their product by rail. And you have a new business that is building up in this community that will definitely need to move its product by rail, and that's the folks with Red Rock. So I'm not here with a heavy-duty agenda to request anything, but simply as a matter of a desire to develop working relationships. Before we met, Commissioner Winters mentioned I should contact former Commissioner Dan Schoen, who knows a lot about these things. I've already placed a call and left him a message. At every opportunity we have to meet with folks and gather information, our goal is to be cheerleaders, advocates, and assistants to the county. And for the record, I want to make it clear, we're not asking the county to contract with our shipping group or to pay us anything. The way we want to work is we're free agents trying to help because we think that the Lake County Railroad is an important part of Oregon's future and an important part of Lake County's future. And we're working for what we think of as the greater good, but we have businesses that support us, and they're supporting us because they see a need to move their freight. They want to be able to move it in a reliable system that is cost-effective and efficient. And that's why we're now looking at the good things this county is trying to do. You've brought in a railway operator who, in our opinion, in the last year has done dramatic things to improve operations and relationships with the communities, running it down into California. You've committed to seek grant funding to improve the railroad line itself. And I think this is a significant commitment by the county as to your staff resources, your treasurer, and all the other folks who have been working hard on this. We think we may be able to help because we are in Salem, and that does help sometimes with the connections with state government. We think that we can also help because we're working with folks in Washington, D.C., who are looking at the federal grants. But we're not pretending to be magicians, and we're not Merlin, wizards, I guess. But we are diligent about identifying projects that are worthy of support because of the benefits I talked about. And yeah, I'm here to compliment Lake County on having established ownership of a railroad, and now over these recent years trying real hard to get things going so that railroad is really serving the needs of your community. And one, we see it as a necessary element of meeting current business needs. Two, a necessary element with improvement of the line and the equipment to meet the needs of Red Rock as it builds up its business. And three, the capability to assist other businesses that are not presently using the rail line, such as some of the hay producers in this county who are using truck systems to move their product. Now, they're going to be hard-edged, smart business people, I'm sure, and they're going to want to see that if they're going to ship their freight by rail, that it's going to be in a system that will get there on time and will connect up with other systems. As part of that, I want you to know that as we've traveled around the state the last 3 years, I've been consistently making a point of meeting with folks locally and looking for communities where there are good things going on. And I'll mention to you, without saying names, there's at least 2 places I've gone to where I've gone away saying to myself, these folks don't really want to do anything, so why bother, okay? On the other hand, we've been to Coos Bay and we've met with the folks from the Port of Coos Bay and the folks from the county, and we see that the folks from Coos Bay have a dynamic desire to build up the Port of Coos Bay. The International Port of Coos Bay has a deep water port, and they've acquired the Coos Bay rail line because the former owner and operator was letting the system just rot. As far as, that's my judgment word, it was just degrading. And they've now purchased it and they're investing, and they've just gotten some additional federal grant money to fix that line, which gives them their critical connection from the port to the Willamette Valley. And when we're looking at that kind of a connection, there may eventually be a connection for Lake County through the Goose Lake Railway and then connecting up with the Union Pacific to connect up with the Coos Bay Rail Line for export of product from this county instead of having to go to, say, Tacoma or Seattle. In the short run, until the capability of Coos Bay has been developed in terms of container shipping, well, I'll make it as efficient as possible to move product to the north. But right now, the most important thing is to get that 55 miles of railway improved, the railroad, and we're here to do what we can to encourage and support that. I hope that wasn't too long-winded a presentation, but I wanted to get it all out of the table.
So Kevin, I have a question for you. I realize that you're working on the railroad end of it, but as your shipping group, does it only include railroad, or do you also do the trucking industry too?
We do have at least one trucking business right now that's a member of the shipping group. Because we were focusing so much on short-line rail, actually most of the members of the businesses that support our work are farmers in the Willamette Valley, some around the state, and some importers, businesses that import product. So off the top of my head, I can only think of one separate trucker. There are several of our farmer members who operate their own trucking operations. And we're not against anything being done to improve the capability of moving trucks, but we see a need to focus on the availability of infrastructure money separately for railroads, since there are different pools of funds for that. The Highway Trust Fund is dedicated just to that.
The reason I ask is because I know Commissioner Winters and I know Commissioner Winters has worked on it for a while, but we really want to get 140 hooked into where we can drive trucks across there. You got all of Colorado, Utah, Nevada, anybody coming from the east is spending 3 to 6 hours longer by going around 140. And if we can get 140 opened up to truck traffic, it might even help the rail. It would definitely help 97 on their trucks, because you wouldn't have trucks from Klamath Falls to Lapine that would normally be on 97, because they would go up 140 and up Highway 31 and intersect with 97 in Lapine or in Klamath Falls. And so we'd reduce the truck traffic on 97, and it would greatly increase the truck traffic that could come into Lake County.
Well, Commissioner Albertson, that is a great notion, and we're not shy about looking at what else we can do. We're going to focus right now, because of some close-in deadlines, on federal grant funds, working with the state to help the treasurer with applications, which will have March deadlines, as I recall. So we're going to be focusing on that. I will mention that over time in the Mid-Willamette Valley, we've been working with the Brooks community on a particular project, but as we work on the rail element of that project, we recognize that Brook Lake Road in that area needs significant improvements, Without going into details, there's 4 places where you need to really make improvements, including the ramps from I-5. So we've separately, now the shipping group has worked up estimates on what it would cost and what kind of grant money it would be necessary to do those highway improvements. So we are about transportation. And as we're working on rail here, then we'll, having heard from you on this, we'll start paying attention to what about the 140 connection? And ultimately, Oregon is such a large state, and we do have counties with lower population, and there's sometimes just a question of political power and all that. We are trying to remind the political powers that be that there's some wonderful things about the state outside of the Willamette Valley and outside of Eugene, Salem, and Portland that need to be not only preserved, but they need to be assisted in developing their potential. And so I've got a note here on Highway 140 and trucks, and we'll see what we can do.
Little history on 140, it's the last length restriction on that segment between Lake County and Klamath County on 140 west. That length restriction's been taken care of. Deep Creek curves is where it's at. Through ODOT, applied for a flat grant, was not successful. It's been through some of the developmental stage. It's very high on the radar. It's just the cost of it. With a vision, and I will go back to Commissioner Schown, Lakeview with 395, 140, the railroad and everything, with a vision to be a distribution center on the east side of Oregon. You know, if you think about from Reno to here and Winnemucca to here and all that, just our geographic location is to being a problem, could someday with the vision be a solution. And so it all plays together. So if length restrictions were taken off of that, and if we were able to get to the deep port with a vision to Coos Bay, the future of Lake County could be pretty good looking that way. So as you go through your presentation there, just a comment, because of sometimes we get in our box and we get to thinking, but that railroad, and it really became obvious whenever we talked, because I talked about it in general, but that's our connection internationally, worldwide. Right here in the east side of Oregon, and you know my slogan is One Oregon, but we're connected internationally with that railroad. And that's big. And that alone can be the buzzword as you're applying for these grants and everything. And with Red Rock now, with FedEx, with US, our Southwest Airline, it even one more cog in the wheel internationally, we're connected. So that's huge. You know, you sit here as commissioner and all the years that you work on this and everything. Our railroad, our 55 miles, connects us internationally. That's pretty big. So.
Yes, sir. In fact, you reminded me of something else as we were talking about 395, 140 the road. We had a chance to, Toby Van Elforst took us on, is it called the high rail truck?
That's correct.
And the high rail truck all the way along the line down to Alturas, so we can have a sense of what needs to be done. And we stopped at several spots, but thinking too about the highway connections, you combine that with the railroad connection, there's a lot that can be done.
Yeah. So I'm very encouraged, and so one thing that really hits home is whenever you come before us and say, we're not asking for money. And you and Connor have spent the time to come here today to research our community, research not just the railway, but to get to know our community. You're looking at coming back to be inclusive of North Lake and all these other things. You made this happen. Our first call was roughly 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. You guys aggressive enough to get here, work with Toby, get on the ground. Appreciate that. We appreciate the sincerity. We appreciate being part of your whole vision. And it's not just a vision of Lake County. It's a vision of getting the product to market, basically, commodities in and out. So some of the work we do today may not happen for 5 years or 10 years, but if we don't work with a vision and try to get things in place today, it just doesn't happen. So there's so much I could talk about, and I get very enthused. Toby, he's back there smiling, he knows my passion for transportation and that side of it, that our two biggest private sector industries, this railroad impacts. And when it doesn't operate, it impacts our community very negatively, and we've seen that. We've seen $60,000 to $70,000 of value of just the chips on the ground out there, let alone the cost to that operation, talking about the sawmill, shutting down, those employees missing 3 days of work. It makes it tough for them to make their bills and everything. So where we're at today, I'm taking the compliment you gave to Toby. I want to extend that back out there. I think that we at least hit a double. I think we're going to end up with a home run at the end, but I'll give him at least a double right now.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'll turn sideways when I go up, so I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come here today, and I'm sure we will continue to be in touch. And thank you for the opportunity to be of service.
Thank you.
So if there's anything you need from any of us, you met with our treasurer or budget officer, call us. I was one to put Commissioner Shall's name out there. He has connections, some political connections that we've been working on the bill grant. This board we're pretty unified in what we need to get done to get it on the ground.
Well, to show you how we pay attention, I actually managed to leave him a voicemail message just before 10 o'clock, so that we could start trying to connect up. So we'll follow up on that.
Yeah, good. Is there any questions? I normally don't open it up to the audience, but is there any questions, Dave, Ann, or Toby, anybody? Any comments?
How about you, Connor?
Just happy to be here. It's been a great learning opportunity for us, and appreciate all the time you've all given us today, and look forward to working with you all.
Thank you very much, and Mr. Manor next, you will return your call whenever you get that together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, we're going to go right back to our agenda then. Our next item on the agenda is Melanie Buzzini, return of organization property edition. This is a policy edition, potential policy rewrite edition.
So as our policy stands right now, there isn't any language in there for cellular returns. Specifically, we've received 2 devices now that have been unusable. I would like to change the language and add language in there saying that cellular phones need to be restored to factory default settings and free of passcodes that would prohibit future use. It isn't a great financial burden to the county, but this would make sure that it doesn't happen in the future. Because we can't even resell the device.
And so you've ran this policy through HR and through legal counsel?
Yeah, I've talked to HR and legal counsel. I also mentioned that I wanted some sort of financial recourse if the device is unusable. They thought it would be worth the time to use small claims court. But it's just frustrating that we have a device that's usable, but we can't use it because we don't have access to Apple or Verizon passcodes.
So, this policy you and I visited, myself, technically, I don't believe there's really the necessity because there's the law, as far as I'm concerned, that if you have this and it's county property, you return it in functional use and all that. But if we put this in the policy, then whenever people exit their exit interview, this policy's in place for HR to say, this will, check this one off.
Yeah.
This will be done, and we get this device back and taken care of. Where we're sitting today, we have to assume, we know what that means, but assume that they're going to give us that. And then we have past employees that you can't get a hold of that will not relinquish those things. So this will clean it up. This will make that box you can check off and the checks and balances that we need.
And if we pass this today, or tomorrow, he'll put that on his checkout list and make sure that he'll go into the device, make sure it's accessible before the employee leaves.
So good work, good catch. Any other questions on that?
Well, I think that's, it's pretty simple, actually.
Yeah.
All right, our next item is, we have our quotes in for vehicles. Melanie is our fleet manager. So Melanie, you want to go over those for tomorrow?
Yes, of course. So the vehicle committee met before you guys came on. They deliberated on what purchases would be great for the cycle, for our rotation. They ultimately decided to go with 2 sheriff's vehicles. And so I sent out identical RFQs to 3 different businesses. I received 2. And there's a significant difference between our local dealer and the dealer in Klamath, which pains me, because I'd like to keep business local as much as possible, but ultimately I want to save the taxpayers and county money. So I would recommend tomorrow that you guys award the purchase to Livia in Klamath. It's for 2 vehicles.
For a total savings of,
For a total savings of $1,700 if we go with Livia.
So, just a bit of clarification, to follow all of our contract review board rules and everything is everybody has equal opportunity to give quotes.
Right.
And we go with the equal opportunity, stay within the auditing, stay within the rules and all that. And so, this is put out that way. Want to talk a little bit, and tomorrow I'll probably make sure I get it in there before motion's done, is the vehicle committee, which we actually approved one direction and never brought it to, as an advisory group, to the Board of Commissioners for approval. And the first was 1 sheriff's vehicle and 1 for the juvenile department. The juvenile department vehicle is in need of being replaced. We were requested by the sheriff's department to relook at that and listen to their argument. The vehicle committee came to consensus, not unanimous, but consensus to propose 2 sheriff's vehicles this year, but in this next budget year, that absolutely that the juvenile rate be replaced. So I just want to make sure that's in the minutes, and that's representative of the juvenile department and the vehicle committee's recommendation is reluctance to take that one off the purchase this year was there by all of us, but we tried to make sure that we're going to carry that forward as a vehicle committee for recommendation to the full board this next budget year. Make sure that we have to get through the budget process, make sure there's monies allowable within that fund. But I want to make sure to get that out there, that a lot of discussion about that.
Yeah, and so we're trying to be, this savings will really help the beginning budget next year, hopefully, that we can make sure that Mr. Greer and the juvenile department don't get slighted again.
Yeah, and a little more history. The only way that we were able to purchase 2 rigs this year is the sheriff's department said the 2 vehicles that were surplusing, that they definitely have to go away. That they have some issues that they need to be surplus, not cascade down to another department. Those will be sold. And then 2 trailers that they're surplusing. And so those have to get put on. We do go through gov deals, we go through an internet process to get rid of our surplus vehicles and other stuff. And so those funds are coming back within this department, within this fund, to offset the cost. We would not have been able to do this without that happening. So we're, Melanie's working hard, but those things have got to happen right away, because we're getting, as you know, we're already starting to talk budget. So she'll be working with the department, the sheriff's department, to make these things happen. If either one of you want to go see the trailers, we generally get them moved over to the road department, and then they can be viewed there by appointment only. So anything to help Melanie, jump right in there. I've been on the vehicle committee forever. have a lot of ownership in it. You're not gonna bother me if you jump in and say, let's get this done. Just a little bit of history, I could talk quite a bit, but very proud of where we're at on vehicles today compared to the old days. So I lobby quite hard to keep good quality vehicles, safe vehicles for our employees.
Also, we're using some of the sheriff's radio funds to decrease the vehicle department's upfitting fund. They're paying for the radio transmitters and the radio equipment in the new vehicles for all four. So that's a big benefit to my budget savings, because they're very expensive to upfit, as you guys know.
I really encourage both of you to get a little one-on-one time with Melanie so you can see the full cost vehicles on law enforcement side are fully outfitted now. It's just progressively climbed, and so get a little one-on-one time with our fleet manager. She does us a great job. So. Any other questions on vehicles? Probably more information than you wanted to hear right at the moment.
Yeah.
We'll probably be going over some of the history over the next few meetings as things come to my head. Next item we have, we said that we'd come back and look at the liaison assignments. I'll throw out there a couple things right off. This one here I didn't catch until yesterday, haven't had a chance to talk to you, Mark. The local public safety coordinating council, that should go with me with the adult corrections and juvenile set on that. So I don't even know if you've seen, that's just above early learning. So that should go over onto my side of the box. And then
that council's working with Steve.
Local Public Safety Coordinating Council, that is Jake, and the Department of Human Services, the judge, we meet monthly. And so if you have a big passion, want to be that one, but it goes.
And then I'm getting the safety, security.
Yeah, that's where I was going next. I had mentioned whenever we were laying these out is that for a short appointment to the state safety committee and to our local committee, I wanted to work on a project that I was in the middle of. That project is, both of you know, I'm one that just grabs you and we go look at things, is now in a good process where it's at. And so I think it's important, especially for you're the sheriff in the jail, for the security part of it, for actual security for the court system, for the courthouse, we use the sheriff's department. So it fits with what you're doing, Mark, and so I'm comfortable, as I mentioned, I'm on.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was gonna say to James if he would be interested in taking their early learning and the South Central Early Learning Hub. Would you?
Yeah, I'd be fine with working with that, actually.
And that sort of goes along with the housing that you've already
Yeah.
jumped, makes sense to me, and I don't speak for you.
Yeah, no, there was conversation about it earlier. I'll put this on. There was confirmation just about, conversation about the fact I actually have less liaisons than everyone.
You will gain
And,
You just gained two.
and, yeah. But also, several of my liaisons, mental health, public health, and they happen to be outsourced to the hospital, actually, for the most part. And even though I may still be liaison to them, for a large part, there's not a ton of work on my desk in regards to those departments.
Yes and no, we're still the mental health and
Yes.
public health authority.
But
so-
as of yet, I'm perfectly fine with taking on a few extra and pulling my
Perfect.
share of the weight. So I
So like,
think a little bit of redistribution.
that makes you got two more than me, and I'd be happy with that.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, that's fine. We'll work with it, and we can always revisit things later.
You know, that, I don't think that these have to be cut and dried. I think at any time that we see some synergies and we want to talk about it in a work session and say, you know, I'm working on this and the synergy is for me to be this liaison also or be at this meeting. I think that we need to bring that forward, not wait till this January. Every January we can read and look at them as the traditional way is. But I think as we see the synergies that will complement and get the services on the ground, we do that. I really believe. The one that we never had any talk about, and I don't see it here unless I'm overlooking it, is I am on the Wolf Committee, and it's not on there.
Did you hear, Brad, that there was a possible wolf kill?
I heard that
on Buck Road.
on what's that?
On Buck Road.
I heard about it, I texted out, we have not received no update if it was, you know, whenever there's a potential wolf encounter or depredation, it triggers a pretty thorough investigation. We haven't had an update yet if it was actual or not.
Well, Nick Rago, Ann thinks that he buried the carcass because it was a family pet, it was a llama. And so the
Yeah.
investigation's probably not gonna happen.
Yep.
But we know they're here. So
Well, we've had one confirmed wolf depredation in Lake County, which is pretty unusual for you to get that confirmed depredation, and we've had that. So we have wolves, there's no doubt. And so it's just almost time for our next quarterly meeting. I believe Melanie, she by default ended up staying right with the Wolf Committee, the same as the previous administrative assistant. So she does our minutes and keeps the meetings going. If either one of you have a burning desire to be on the Wolf Committee, I enjoy it. I've been there, done that. But if either one of you have a burning desire, or if you want to sit in the meetings when we have the meetings,
I
you're
might
more
sit
than
in with you.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Our committee is Foz, Doug Troutman, Michael Leary, Tom O'Leary, John Taylor, who am I missing?
Dan Michelson.
Dan Michelson, yes. That's our Wolf Committee.
Dan Henderson, did you say him?
Pardon me?
Did you say Dan Henderson? From Ace?
No, I did not. Good, yeah. And so, and John Muir, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife biologist, steps in not as a voting member or anything, but as the biologist. And so, anyways, and just an update, we did give, out of our dollars, we gave $1,000 to Wallowa County, which has been having a lot of depredation, and the dollars that come down, the ODA dollars that come down, they didn't have enough, so. I haven't had an update further out, but they were really, they have wolf problems there, big time. They're cattlemen, sheep people, it's bad. So, anyways, so I go get,
And then we have to use our project money or return it by the end of this month also, just so you guys are aware of that,
And then when do we get it back?
in the spring. I'll reapply, and if we're awarded the money, we'll have money back in the beginning of summer. Mr. Muir was surprised that we received any funding this year, so our chances of next year will probably be slimmer. Also, he hasn't investigated these two alleged depredation events because he hasn't been asked to. So it's important for people to let him know so we can get them documented.
Yeah, we need to, people need to have that documented.
Yeah,
the best way to get them off the listing is documentation.
yeah.
The right opposite of what the general public thinks. Just a little follow-up, you guys will be quite active through County College AOC, and there is some legislation right now. This weekend, whenever you're up in Salem, if you get a chance, find out where that legislation is at. I think it's on the Public Land Subcommittee that we're not a voting member, but we are a member.
Yeah.
Might check into that, and just being able to talk about it, shout out to all of you guys for stepping up to take on County College. I am so excited for Lake County, for what you guys are stepping up and gonna do, so thank you guys
And
for
I'm
that.
really glad Melanie's going to. I think that's gonna be really good for our future.
It's about getting services on the ground, and so I'm very encouraged. One other on the liaison, we talked all around, we hadn't really made a decision. I am very supportive of the Department of Corrections, our local prison and statewide ran prisons. I've been on the PAC ever since I've been a commissioner, and enjoy that. But I also know the value of new people sitting on some of these advisories and getting to know and see the value of things. So if either one of you would like to be the PAC representation after Thursday, I will go to the PAC meeting. You guys are going to be out of town. We don't have to change it, put one of you guys on there. Mr. Brown is very good. We're always invited to the graduations out there whenever they run open houses and other things. So very inclusive of the full board, but you guys think about that. So, and it doesn't have to happen today. We meet quarterly as the PAC, so get through the meeting this week. And then
We will be
there's time.
out of town this Thursday, so I think it would make sense you go,
Yeah.
and then after this, we can.
Well, and maybe we'll get to tour before our next quarterly meeting. No pressure, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, anytime, we're open.
24/7, right? So, Melanie.
Can I get some clarification? I spoke to Commissioner Albertson the other day on the regional workforce investment, COWC. I wasn't sure exactly what that was, but we didn't discuss it last meeting either. Is that the workforce downstairs through KCC?
Regional workforce, that's, yes, that's,
So that should be KCC instead of COWC.
well, the KCC is part of the workforce, but you're part of the, gosh, I'm trying to remember her name. Anyways,
So what's the COWC? What's that acronym?
I don't know. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. You met with the same people I met with, Mark. What's the WC? I can't remember. Is her name Heather?
Central Oregon,
Work-
Central Oregon
I think so.
Workforce
Central Oregon
Council, something like that.
Workforce
maybe.
Council.
Yeah, Workforce Council, I
Yeah.
think, that's what it is.
Trying-
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Figured it
thank
out,
you.
too.
I'm like drawing a complete blank.
Yeah, don't even get me started on the acronyms.
We do.
Need a
That's the
dictionary.
hardest thing about this job.
I know.
And then you talk to the guys at the Forest Service or the BLM and they have their whole
And you have
verbiage.
DOC too.
Some of them are the same, and they're entirely
Usually the
different
same, and they
departments.
mean different
Yeah,
things.
completely different things.
Right.
Like, yeah,
We do have a list, I don't know if you can pull it up, Melanie, of acronyms. I don't know if it's still on your computer or whatever, but
That would be really good, because the only acronym I know for sure is CRS.
so we'll put that under his liaison, Mr. Albertson. So,
speak, go ahead.
well, I was gonna ask, do you guys see anything on here that we need to look at or
Well,
any other?
Speaking of acronyms, and last week I went to a CHIP meeting over at the hospital, and I think it might be worth revisiting. They would like a liaison for that department at the hospital, and
And what was that?
it's Community Health Initiative Program, and Christy Albertson is involved with that along with Arvinder Singh, and Brad and I did meet with them and just kind of listened to what they're working on in the terms of transitional housing, alternative housing in the community, and they've got some really cool projects that they're working on. And they have it written in their bylaws that they are supposed to have a county commissioner on their, as a liaison. So I think it would be worth discussing this, and if,
I already put you down.
Yeah, you're down.
am I, okay.
You're on it.
You're the chip.
All right.
You're the CHP.
Yeah. Chip off the old block, huh?
Yeah.
If you guys are interested, I've spoken to our vendor about the possibility of him making a presentation. I think it would be really good for the community, personally, just to hear about the different things that they're working on.
Aren't they the ones that do the lunch deal at the park in
Yes,
summertime?
yes, they are, and our vendor has been working with that for a long time. His name is actually our vendor, I'm not actually talking about a vendor. Our vendor is a really, really cool guy. I think you guys all really like him. He's been a huge asset to the community. I only just met him last week, but I would love to have him come forward and have a presentation before the commissioners.
Absolutely, I support that very much. As you're the liaison to the CHIP and everything, there was some spin-offs of that, and I don't know if there's other subgroups or other groups that it might show that you need to be liaison to or set on those. As you find out about those and everything, or if that should be a representative from the hospital or whatever, just bring those forward, and if you need to be set on some other ones as liaison, bring that forward.
I do have some more information on that. I'm not convinced at this point, today, I'm not convinced that I need to be on too many of those other boards. But I think tomorrow I will make sure that I have more of that information in front of me, and we can possibly discuss that in regular session.
Perfect, perfect. Is there any, I forgot about CHIP, I'm glad you brought that forward. Is there any other on the liaisons that, all right? Oh,
Can
sorry.
I just, real quick, let you guys know, we might not be getting transportation money as scheduled this
Thank you.
quarter. It might be offset a little bit because of the government shutdown.
I think,
I sent you guys the email, but just.
I think that's potential on, a lot of people in the public doesn't realize the federal funds that come into the county, whether it's through the special transportation dollars or potentially through the safety net dollars or grant funding and different things. Until the federal government figures it out, we might have some delay on some funding. With that said, I worry about services on the ground on special transportation side. And so we might have to work with Ann and see if there's ways to keep things going. And if we'd be comfortable enough to make sure that we get reimbursed for everything. I don't know, Melanie, off the top of my head, but we have to keep those services on the ground some way.
When I talked to Ann, she seemed to think we were good until May.
Yeah, we should be fine the way we're set up with our reimbursements. I just wanted you guys to be cognizant that that could be an issue possibly. Also, the Oregon's general fund might not be used to supplement state funding anymore. We could see up to a 40% reduction this next fiscal year, according to Halgard
On,
Transportation Fund.
are you talking special transportation funding?
For our SDF funding. They just said to have that on your radar that there might be a reduction. Fingers crossed.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that. Because through the last legislation and through the governor's transportation plan, special transportation came out of winter. So that's interesting.
Yeah. It's a little fearsome for my little
Okay.
program, but
All right.
we'll be okay. We'll be offset by new STIF funding, so, oh, yeah.
Okay. And these guys are saying, what's STF?
Special transportation.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one I actually did though.
Okay. All right, anything else on liaisons?
No, I'm good.
Okay, liaison updates, just give you a real fast overview. Fair board, out there, I said on the fair board, we're working very progressively on getting ready for the Roundup's 100th year celebration. It's not the fair's 100th year. The fair's been on longer than the Roundup. So we're working on trying to help get things together in an incremental fashion. Our director out there is working with we only have the one employee, is setting out monthly milestones we need to get here and get there, and have the place ready for this next year, 100-year celebration. So big to do for the roundup. Most people don't separate roundup and fair, but we will be a key part of that. So working on that. Just going over. I think both of you guys are aware, and I apologize, I should have done this last meeting, but for SCO Act and SCO Ed, we have a full board meeting in Klamath Falls on Friday the 8th. That's in Klamath Falls. So really need both of you guys to make that, along with, if you're not able to travel that day, we can conference call in. So we have that.
I have it on mine already.
Yeah, it's already in my schedule.
Good. I thought I had mentioned it away from the meetings. I'm looking on here, I said on the regional solutions, we have a meeting the 25th. That's just me, but the regional solutions has been instrumental in several different things. Hopefully this legislative year they'll bring more dollars in that we can apply for. Over the years we applied for and we received money on the railroad. We had received money for natural gas, but Red Rock and everything didn't come in. We ended up not able to utilize that dollars. They didn't sell those bonds, but as hopefully this legislative year they will put some more money out for our region, and then we will encourage whatever department to apply for some of those funds, hopefully. So I have that coming up.
So Brad, do you know what the PUC would be bringing the natural gas in Lake County? Do you have any idea of what that would be?
There's a lot of talk around whether this gas line will be regulated by PUC or not. Within Red Rock, that is slated as non-regulated PUC, and I will say we're working on some things right now, Mark, that we're working on some things. On that. So, yes, I will say for the extra capacity that the county negotiated and to get it into our community, that would be regulated by PUC.
And do you know what that would be?
No, I don't. No, I don't. There's guidelines within the PUC and as a regulated utility and different things, and it's pretty in-depth. But working with state of Oregon, working with the private sector, we're working on that. That's about what I have on liaisons. As you guys have seen, I'm trying to make sure you guys know or are involved in everything we can, follow the public meeting laws, but at the same time get informational things. I would think within this first year, it's important to do exactly what James was talking about. Invite people to come in and do a public presentation to us to educate both you guys, keep me educated, the federal government, the BLM, Forest Service as they get back to work, the state forestry, you know.
How about, hey, would you be interested in coming and maybe bringing a few of your people and doing a presentation, and then after that presentation we can go?
On a tour?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You bet. It's just
So
let you know what you'd like to hear from security manager, commercial flotation services.
Maybe all the guys that, you know, affect our county, which is pretty much, you know, all your
Bring them.
security, huh?
Bring our management team,
Yeah,
let them, sure, yeah.
and then we can kind of get an idea of what's going on, and then we'll go do a tour afterwards.
Yeah, we'd like to do that. Melanie will let you know what,
Maybe
you know, if it's a work session or a regular, whatever you like us to
Maybe
come
our
in.
next work session, and then we could tour in the afternoon.
Okay?
Yeah, and it actually, it's not just for our benefit, but also to share it with the public. You know, we have it recorded, and I think it's something good if people want that information, that we make that information available.
Yeah.
And share it with the public, especially when we have really positive things going on, and, yeah.
And maybe even your need for more COs.
Yeah, that's pretty much part of every presentation.
You might be able to talk about the projected budget and by the next meeting of some of the things. And I know you're only able to present things, we're politicians, we can go further on and show support for
Right.
funding, positions, other things. So any update that would show the projections for our prison here, prisons across the state of Oregon, gives us the tools for us. These guys are gonna be in Salem quite a bit the next 6 months, so. And I don't know if
It's 9 months.
I think one of them, or maybe both, are gonna try to get on the legislative committee at AOC. So we have a spot on the legislative committee at AOC, so, we're throwing all kinds of things at them, but, it's all gonna start falling into place pretty fast, so.
You bet. Happy to do it.
Sounds good, thank you.
Yeah.
So, anything else to come before the board?
No, sir.
We're going to adjourn at 7 minutes till 11.